Let's play a game of what are the odds, looking at various events that the Pacers will be facing in the next calendar year and guessing the odds of them happening. Will the Pacers make the playoffs? Will Jalen Smith opt into his contract? Will any of several key veterans be traded? We'll get into all of it with Jimmy Cook today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, y'all, and happy August. The offseason has pivoted to the slowed down time, which means it's time to get into some much more fun and wide-ranging topics about the Indiana Pacers. And today, we're doing a game called What Are the Odds? As always, my name's Tony East. I host this show, and I cover the team for Forbes and SI. Today, we're playing What Are the Effing Odds, as inspired by the Dunked On podcast, picking various events that the Pacers will be facing this season and the odds of them actually taking place. For example, the odds Jalen Smith opts into his player option next year, or TJ McConnell has his contract guaranteed next season, among many other things. Jimmy Cook from 1075 The Fan is going to join us to break it all down. Really fun show. I had a lot of fun putting the topics together and breaking the odds, and you learn a lot about the state of the Pacers in the coming year. Lots to get to. Let's just dive right into it. It's August, which on the NBA calendar means it's time for silly stuff. There's no free agency movement for a while. There might not be for a bit. The Pacers' only move last August was signing David Servidis to an Exhibit 10 contract. So it's time for historic stuff, player interviews, and a new idea that I'm stealing from Dunked On that they do called What Are the Effing Odds? They call it Watfos, and we're going to do it on Locked On Pacers. How this works, a topic, a question, and I and person who I will introduce in a second will decide the percent chance that that event happens this year for the Pacers. We can check back next year and see how dumb or smart we looked on all of these fronts. The person you will be hearing from, who will be helping me get to the bottom of these Watfos, is from Mr. 1075 The Fan himself. It's Jimmy Cook. Jimmy, happy August, my friend. No Jonathan Taylor, no broken arm Zach Moss, just Pacers today. I'm sure that's new for your life recently.
Tony, I'm sorry, I gotta go. Jim Irsay just tweeted. No, I'm just kidding.
Did he really?
No. I'm very happy on a refreshing change of pace to get to join you and the fine folks Locked On Pacers and get back to the sport closest to my heart. I'm excited.
There you go. See, to do one Colts thought, every time Jim Irsay tweets, not every time, but most of them, I think about what my life would be like if Herb Simon had a Twitter account. And it would be a lot different is the answer. So I can't believe. What are the odds? What are the effing odds that Herb Simon ever tweets ever? So the way that Nate and Danny do this on Dunked On is they literally, like, throughout the season will just come up with a topic and then review them a year later. I came up with 7 of them that will be determined in the next 11 months for the Pacers and will all have a small to large impact on the future trajectory of the team. So Watfo number 1 for you, Jimmy Cook. What are the odds that next offseason Jalen Smith opts in to his $5.4 million player option, keeping him with the Pacers for the next 2 years? Because center position's in flux. There's been a lot of talk about Isaiah Jackson, mostly because he played in Summer League. There's been talk about Daniel Tice. Should he be traded? Should he be the backup 5? Not a lot of talk about Jalen Smith, who was probably the best backup 5 they had last year. Is he going to play? What's that going to look like? So what odds would you give me that he opts into his contract next year and is with the Pacers for the next 2 years?
Tell me if I'm doing this right. Can I give percentages? Is
that is the
way?
intended response is a percentage. Okay. Yes.
Okay, good. I will say a 30% chance.
Wow, mine is way higher than yours.
I will say
good.
I will say a 30% chance on Jalen Smith for the same reason that you did. There's 2 ways to look at this. Either he gets the reason I have it so low is either he gets forced out with where this rotation is at to the point that he wants to try to go somewhere else and feels like he could earn at that market evaluation or more, or he succeeds well enough in that role to think I can make more money somewhere else. Therefore, I am going to opt out of that option. So I'm going to say 30%.
So Trey Lyles, an NBA rotation player who's a little older than Jalen Smith, but still in the front court, got 2 years, $16 million this summer. So did Mo Wagner. He got 2 years, $16 million this summer. So that's a higher market than Jalen Smith. Those guys are both better than Jalen Smith, to be clear, but that's a higher market. Dwight Powell got 3 years, $12 million. He is also better than Jalen Smith, but is not young. He is 32 when the season starts. Kevin Love got 2 years, like $8 million. He's probably a little better. So to me, Jalen Smith is in a tough spot because if he doesn't play because there's a center carousel and he's the odd man out or one of the odd men out, ironically, at the center spot, he'll opt in because he won't be worth that much to any team, and getting $5.5 million to be a third center is great money. And I find it hard to believe that he would play so well that he is just locked up backup center all season for the Pacers, given the investment they've had in Jackson, given that Tice is still on the team, given that Turner's going to play a lot. The only way to me that he outplays that deal is he plays a ton and recaptures his shot from 2 years ago after the Pacers traded for him. So I think it's fairly likely, and I even include him in a later answer for a different thing that we'll get to, that he does opt in just because the backup center market is already tough for a lot of guys. Like the guys I just said are probably going to potentially start for their teams. So we'll see where that ends up shaking out for him. I put 80%.
Wow.
This is great. I think it's very likely. And the other factor of this is if he's traded, he still carries the player option with him. So if he opts in with a different team, I still win next year.
Maybe we get an asterisk by that. Perhaps he has to be with the Pacers because it's locked on Pacers. Sure, I would argue that then becomes a locked on Hornets type deal if he ends up in like Charlotte, for example. So I don't know.
Transfer it to them by default.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is not an under-discussed thing. There's no point to discuss it this summer, but every other option or free agent they have next summer is in Pacers' control. So it's a lot easier for them to clear their own space or plan outside of him. And when they signed him and we're like, yeah, you're starting, it was like, yeah, we love this kid. This makes sense. But now it's like, is he even the right backup five? Like that's a big discussion point to me, is how they handle that this season, what that means. To me, you plan that he's going to be on your team, that he has 2 years left on his deal, just because of how the backup center market looks and the fact that they have Miles Turner on their team still. But that one's tricky. And I think the way that he would opt out is that he has an awesome year and he can get paid way more, and the Pacers have full bird rights, so they can pay him a ton. Or he thinks he can get 3/4 as much, but way more playing time somewhere else. And I should know this better, but I mean, he's only going to be 24 next summer. Like he's still young and the next top 10 pick who could be, hunting the right money. So I think there are reasons he turns 24 next March. So I think there are reasons he could consider opting out. But to me, given the state of the Pacers center position, I think opting in is much more likely.
I think that the reason I have it so low is more on the mindset of the negative that you listed. You listed both reasons that, I think he could be in the strongly likely chance to opt out because either he plays so well that he feels like he could go test it elsewhere and then make more money, or like you mentioned, the Pacers could match, or, and this is what I'm leaning on more than anything, is he looks at what he's making and looks at the fact that I'm 24 years old. I really don't want to be stuck out of a rotation, even if I'm making $5 million. I want to go get PT. Therefore, that's what I'm banking on, which I guess is more cynical for the Pacers, but it's just trying to put my mind in the same wavelength as a player, I guess.
It's tough, and playing time saved his contract career the first time with the Pacers, so we'll see where that lands for him. Watfo number 2. Not play related, although a lot of these are transaction related just because of who I am. Playoff appearance. The big goal for the Pacers this year, make the playoffs. They said it at X interviews. Tyrese Halliburton tweeted about it. Their actions this summer certainly suggest they think they can be in that mix. Chad Buchanan said on a Summer League broadcast that 40 to 45 wins is kind of what they're thinking. Their over-under is lower than that, but I think they're going to be around that 40 to 45 range. That's a play-in range. I'll go first this time.
Just to clarify, this is 1 through 6 seed. This is playoffs.
This is you are playing a playoff game. If they win the play-in tournament and they're the 7 seed, that counts. That is a win.
Wait, if they make the play-in, does that count as being a playoff?
If they make the play-in but don't make the playoffs, that doesn't count.
Okay,
make the playoffs, that does count.
So it's 1 through 6 or qualifying via the play-in. Okay,
yes,
got you. Okay, got you.
If it was 1 through 6, I'd have my number 25 maybe tops. I mean, not that they didn't get better, they did. It's just the top 6 is pretty similar to last year with Miami, assuming they get Dame at some point, climbing up. and the same top 5. To me, I don't think the Pacers did enough to catch those teams, but I do think they did enough to be in the mix with Chicago, with Brooklyn, maybe Atlanta. I think Atlanta will be a little better too. So if they can get to 8, that gives you 2 lives in the play-in. And in theory, those games are like 40 to 50% chance to win games. If I knew that they could get to 8, I'd probably put their odds at like 75% playoff berth. But I think because it's not clear if they can get to 8 specifically, like if the Bulls are good, the Pacers would be 9. That's hard. Like winning 2 50% chance games is still a 1 in 4 chance. So my number, because I'm higher on the Pacers than most this year, because I have them in that 40 to 45 range, is 55% chance at a playoff berth this year. How close to that your number is that? Hey guys, short little break here so I can talk to you about FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's a lot. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200. You can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-unders to who you think is going to hit the first home run, and you can do it all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. That's fast. There's no better place to bet on the MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball.
Again, just to clarify, this is because we've talked about this on the Fan. That's why I want to make sure that I'm giving the proper number. So this is, you made the play-in, but then you got out of the play-in to make the playoffs.
Yes. Or they make it outright. Both of those. Yes.
70%.
Okay.
What was your number?
55.
We're 70%.
Much closer.
And this is why. Because for me, it's 50. I'm bullish on the Pacers. Very bullish on the Pacers. For me, it's 50% they get a 1 to 6 seed. And more, okay. It's more likely 4 to 6 because I believe them at their word that this is a leap forward year. A lot has to change. They have to get way better on the defensive end. We know that. You need to have a leap forward from Benedict Mathurin if this team wants to be able to go where they really want to go in 2 to 3 years from now. That can't be a draft pick that we look back on in a couple years and say, wow, they missed, because the Pacers are very rarely bad enough to be able to picking players of that caliber. We've known that throughout our lives, and any older Pacers fans outside of a handful of years understand that too. I think that with the addition of Bruce Brown, with the idea of having a clearer identity on the defensive end, and Tyrese Halliburton now, if he didn't already, having full keys to the car, control of, you are our guy for the next 5 seasons. I think this is going to be a team that, when you look at what they do in the first half of the season this year, it's not going to be just a, well, they had an easy schedule type argument, or, well, they're playing outside their mind right now. I think they're going to build on the team they were in the first half of last year, have it over a complete 82-game season. And if it's me, if I'm in that front office, my bar is 1 to 6. I don't want to play in appearance. Wow. I want a legitimate playoff spot for this team. I think they're capable of it, but when you give me the extra 8, 7, 10 range too, it's 75%.
I like it. So I think the optimist or the bullish person could say, well, when Turner and Halliburton played, doesn't matter, irrespective of the rest of the guys, they went 26 and 22. That was the same winning percentage as the Heat and the Nets, who were the 6 and 7 seeds, and they got better. They got Bruce Brown. Obi will help them. Their rotation's better. The young players will get better. They're better than that. On the other hand, I actually thought their winning percentage in the clutch was a little higher than it actually was, but they were a good clutch team, especially when Halliburton was on that heater in mid-December to mid-January. And clutch play is pretty inconsistent. 3 years ago, the Suns were the best clutch team like ever, basically. This past year, they sucked. And that was a big deal in their change in spots in the standings. And it's 5 minutes out of a 48-minute game. It's very unpredictable. So it's fair to say, if they take a step back in the clutch, they lose more games, but they're better. So it's hard for me to say that they're probably a 37-win team on paper. They're close to 35 last year, but I think they added like 5 or 6 wins. So is a 500 team enough to be in the 7 or 8 spot? To me, yes. Do I think they can get to 45? I don't know. That would require a little more internal development or one guy popping. We'll see. But that one, both over 50%, I think we're in agreement. It's more likely than not that they're there. Next up, This one was really hard for me, actually. Because of the Pacers cap situation, I've thought a lot about their next summer and how important it is because they have cap space with Halliburton on a big number, but that won't last forever. How many players from this year's team will be on the team next year? And I've seen I saw this tweet from Law Murray, who covers the Clippers for The Athletic, about the number of players on each team who are also on that team in like 2018. Pacers only wants Miles Turner, right? 5 years, your team changes a ton. So looking at the Pacers, guys with a guaranteed contract right now for next year is just Turner, Walker, Halliburton, Shepherd, and Nembhard. That's 5 players. So the question to you, Jimmy, is more than 10 guys, and you can include 10. So 10 or more guys are on this team next year who are currently on the roster. What odds would you give me on that?
10 or more?
Yes. This was hard. I had to really write this one down. Can I go first so you can hear?
Yeah, please go. Please go.
Great.
Please go. Yeah.
My number is 75% because of my Jalen Smith number from earlier. So let's run through it. Turner, guaranteed contract. Check. Jarris Walker, guaranteed contract. Tyrese Halliburton, guaranteed contract. Andrew Nembhard, guaranteed contract. Ben Shepherd. That's 5. Ben Mathurin has a team option. They're going to pick it up. Duh. That's 6. Okay. This is easy so far. Isaiah Jackson has a team option. That isn't super obvious, but is mostly obvious. That's 7. If Jalen Smith opts in, that's 8. Sure, they could trade a number of those guys this year. But then on the right column of the you got Bruce Brown, who has a team option. Buddy Hield, who's a free agent, but is good. Daniel Tice, that one seems like an obvious on the opposite side. TJ McConnell, who's in flux. Jordan Nwora, who's a free agent. Obi Toppin and Aaron Nesmith are restricted free agents. I could hear arguments that Nesmith could be back, Toppin could be back, McConnell could be back, and Brown could be back. That's 4 guys. That would get me to 12. So because there's enough buffer over 10, even to account for trades, I said 75% chance 10 or more guys are back.
I'm going to say 50% because of the reasons that you outlined.
Give me 49 or 51 just for the sake of
I didn't think about it. that. Okay, I will say 51%.
Nice. Okay.
For what you outlined. I'm sorry. I didn't realize how in this game how 50% is really a cop out. I didn't mean it to
yes,
be that,
it is.
But that's what so I thought I will say 51%. But the main reason I'm doing it is to hedge my argument that Jalen Smith is not going to be on the Pacers next year. He's going to opt out of his
That's a big
contract
swing. That's a whole player.
and go elsewhere. So, yeah, I mean, when I look at what this roster is, the only way I'm looking at an argument of like a couple players here or there, for me, Bruce Brown, unless things go horribly south, which is the luxury of the way that contract looks, he's going to be back. A lot of the players that are in control that you mentioned are going to be back. Toppin is fascinating because without giving too much away for what either this segment or the rest of the show holds, I don't want to jump the shark, and I'm forgetting the order of which we
will talk about him
rundown.
In 2 questions from now.
Okay, so depending on how that question is answered and goes, I don't know that the Pacers want to spend the kind of money it would take to match or retain Obi Toppin next year as a restricted free agent. So I'm not willing to go as far to the yes column as you, but I will go enough to not be a fence sitter.
Part of my strongness on the yes too is let's pretend they want to make a giant trade this year. Whoa, the Pacers did what? A lot of the pieces that would have to be there for salary purposes are already guys who are on a deal that I'm like, well, they could already not be back, right? Brown, Hield, Tice, McConnell. It's like all of them technically could be free agents next summer, and they're key for salary anyway. So even if they trade all 4 of those guys, that doesn't influence my answer that much. So yeah, like Nwora, Toppin, and Nesmith would swing me a little bit, but like that doesn't, and we'll get to specifically trades with those high salary players as the show progresses too. In fact, I think that's the next one.
Wait, so you are starting Miles Turner trade rumors again? Is that what's happening here? Okay, sorry.
Well, I'll explain why in a second that I just said that.
I'm just kidding.
But that's part of why also it's like, even if they make their big trade, they could still have 10 reasonably because of their restricted free agents. So if like all of their big salary guys or their really great assets were in the same column, then it'd be like, okay, it's reasonable to say, well, they are in a good position to make a big trade. Let's temper it. But I think they can make a big trade and still have good stuff So I said 75%. Man, I've been a higher percentage on every single one. I cheated on my next one and I have 50. So now I guess I have to lower it because
Wait, were you higher than me on the playoffs?
Huh?
I
You
was.
Or no, I was not. You're right. I'm dumb.
I was 75% on the playoffs,
I can use my brain today. I had to change my answer because my current one is 50%, and I just told you couldn't do that. Okay, this one, the impetus on this is what I just said. Pacers are in a pretty good position to make a pretty big trade, right? They got the extra first next year. They have all their own picks. They've got a lot of young guys. In fact, so many that Jordan Nwora is out of their rotation as it stands, at least to me. Perhaps they view him as in. Either way, Ben Shepherd, not in their rotation at all. Like, they've got some serious stuff if they want to make a trade. However, turns out to make a trade, you got to send away stuff, and that requires trading away big salaries. And the Pacers only have 3 players who make over $9.2 million. And that's Buddy Hield, who's good and very helpful, Miles Turner, who's very good and very helpful, and Bruce Brown, who they just signed to a big contract. So to me, if they do want to make their big trade either this summer or this season, one of those guys would have to be in it. It's very possible they could just cobble together a bunch of hodgepodge of Tice's and McConnell's and other guys that they don't love, but then they have to send out all their picks ever to do it. There are better ways. So this next question comes from those players having their big salaries. What are the effing odds one of Miles Turner, Bruce Brown, or Buddy Hield is traded this season? I had to go first 2 times in a row, so you're up first this time.
70%.
Nice.
But the
Wow.
but the reason that it's 70 is because regardless of where they are in this playoff scenario, regardless of where they are in terms of is this a rebuild or have they bounced back out of it, I don't see a world where I want to pay the type of money that a stupid team, not the Pacers, but a stupid team, any NBA team, you know what I'm talking about, will throw limitless salary cap monopoly money at a 31 or 32-year-old Buddy Hield next year. I get it. I understand you want to look at a locker room and say, no, you can't break it up if the Pacers are playing really well. And look, there's a line to this, right? Here's my line. Now we'll bring the Colts into it for a second. This is like if I'm Jim Irsay and I am setting my asking price for Jonathan Taylor, which should be a first rounder, and move it along because no one's going to give me that. This is my line. If the Pacers are like a top 3 seed for most of the year next year, then I'm willing to hear, man, don't mess with the good vibes. Then I'm fine with that. Otherwise, you're going to spend monopoly money on Buddy Hield next year as a unrestricted free agent? No, this is his last year as a Pacer, unless he's willing to take a money-friendly deal. Get in front of it now. A closer team than you would be willing to give something of value back, whether it's draft capital, whether it's another player. I think he's on the move this year. I don't think it's Miles. I'd be if it's Bruce Brown, something horrible has happened with the Pacers next season.
Yeah, that I wouldn't rule it out because his contract is like the best thing ever for a team to receive in a trade. But he's very good and helps them tremendously.
Did you watch the press conference? I watched the press conference. Yeah. If that thing goes south, then there's some serious problems.
He's the lowest of the 3 odds wise to me. I had it at 50%. That's cheating. I required you to break that. I'm going 51% is my official number on this because of the reasons you just laid out. Hield is a veteran player in the final year of his contract, right? Teams just think about moving those guys. It's just what they do. Even if you think Buddy Hield's the best player in the NBA, which no one ever does, but just for the sake of argument, you still have to think about it, right? Because you can't lose him for nothing. So he alone will be in these chatters just because of that. Turner only has 2 years left, and Bruce Brown has a 1-1 is what they're called with team options. But whatever, a 2-year deal with the second year as a team option. Like, they're all good players, but they're all in tradable deals, and those salaries are required. And Hield specifically, it's just going to be talked about a lot. Like all summer it was, same with Chris Duarte. So it makes sense to me that they would at least think about it. Now, they don't have a lot of cap space left. He is extension eligible. There are extensions that make sense, but like you said, it's got to make sense for the Pacers too, and their stint going forward. And they have a lot of space to do stuff, but like, could you do better with that space instead? That's stuff they have to figure out. So I don't know exactly what an extension for Hield looks like. Kevin Pritchard even said we've got to figure out what role makes sense for him, which is code for probably not. So I kind of doubt it, but because of his situational, if he had 2 years left, I think my answer to this would be like 20%. But because he has 1 year left, I got to go way higher.
One thing I want to throw in there, and this is my maybe last NFL cross-sport reference of the podcast. But if you needed an indicator that the NBA is more player-friendly, which I like, than the NFL, the fact that a team option is referred to as a -1 is all you needed to know. That's it.
Okay. It's not it. This is not related to what we're talking about. So people kept calling player option contracts 1+1.
Sure. So that's what I'm saying. But if it's 1 - 1,
the 1 - 1 doesn't make sense.
the -1 is the team option, which is very confusing. Like,
yes, I agree that is confusing. Like you have to be like really cap dorky to hear 1 - 1 and go, I know exactly what that means. No problem. So I do feel bad. I should not have used that lingo, but that is where that comes from for you listening. All right. 2 of the next 3 are shorter. The next one is the one you referred to earlier. What are the odds Jarris Walker plays more minutes this season than Obi Toppin? It's my turn to go first. I'm a little biased. I think Jarris Walker's defense is going to be huge for this team, and I'm a little lower on Obi Toppin than other people, I think. I think he's a great fit and will do well with the Pacers, to be clear. I'm a little higher on Jarris than everybody else. My number is 65%. But I do think Obi starts the season.
You can blame my teachers for this, but I've turned into the human being that likes specifics, and I need to know what I'm walking myself into. So is this by season's end, when you look at the average minutes per game, this player got more than this player? Is that what we're talking about?
The season ends, the Pacers are done, and you look at the total minutes played, not per game.
Total
injuries are stupid. Injuries would be boring. Yeah, minutes per game is probably better. Because injuries are dumb.
And you said, what did you say, 65%?
65. I said Jarris plays more. And he's like, Obi's contract is expiring. Like, if they get 2 months in and it's just not working at all, why would they invest a ton of time into him? I'm not saying that will happen, but that's a thing that's there that isn't a thing for Jarris Walker. But he could be awesome and they play him more. It's just, I think there's more ways that Jarris gets more minutes than Obi.
I'm going to say 48%.
We're so uninteresting to listeners. So it's close
okay.
to 50%.
All right.
No, I already typed it.
No. I'm going to say 30%. Is that better?
Swing. I bullied you.
You did bully me to that one. And here's why. Because for me, all I heard about when Obi Toppin was drafted, and all I've been hearing about since the trade was made is, bro, look at how efficient and fast Obi Toppin plays, and look at how fast and quick the Pacers play. And the idea of Tyrese Halliburton being able to, I can't get out of the dude bro voice, be able to do alley-oops and just run at a fast, high level, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. I want to buy into that. And I also want to buy into the fact that maybe as polished at times as Jarris Walker looked in Summer League, maybe he gets the Rick Carlisle treatment of, you're a rookie, you're not fully where we need you to be with the league, I want to bring you on slow. And so Toppin outplays him to the point that Walker is maybe first man off the bench or right there leading that second unit. And it's tight, but I think Obi Toppin winds up leading him in minutes per game.
I think Rick has outgrown that rep. Like Duarte and Mathurin played 28 minutes a game, but we're on 2 bad teams. Yep. This year they want to be better, so maybe that swings back a little bit. I just did the rotation show with Eddie Garrison, as you know very well, the producer that you talk to every day. And I had Walker and Toppin both at 24 minutes per game, just because that makes sense to me, right? They're both pretty equally valued players for the Pacers to me right now. I mean, Walker has the long-term upside, obviously, but this current coming season. And they just gave up stuff for Toppin. So I think Toppin starts to open the season. That's a guess. I have not talked to anyone about that. But we'll see where that shakes out. But I think it's more likely that during the season, Walker establishes himself as the guy who should play more than Toppin does, which is basically what this question is asking to me, is who do you think puts more of a grip or a stranglehold on that position? And maybe Jarris Walker shoots 10% from 3 as a rookie, and they can't play him with the starters. And Obi's way better with Halliburton than without him, and they have to play Obi more because of that. But I'm so high on Jarris. I think his defensive playmaking is going to be so big for this team that I put him higher. So 65%.
Rotation show. You said you had him for what?
Minutes I pulled out about 24 minutes. Split
both,
it.
Had them both at 24 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. When it is I always forget how this type of math works. So when it's like 24 and a half to 23 and a half in favor of Obi Toppin, I'm calling you popping champagne.
You win. And you would win this WAFO. All right, 2 more. One of them is boring, one of them is interesting. The 2-way contract guys. Oscar Tshiebwe, Kendall Brown, and Isaiah Wong. Isaiah Wong they just drafted. Tshiebwe rebounding machine. Kendall Brown they just re-signed. Any of them are back on the team after the season. Kendall Brown just returning for his second stint. This is not as interesting, but I still think they're 3 free agents on a team that has a bunch of free agents. I think that the most likely one to really pop this year statistically is Tshiebwe. I mean, that dude grabbed 6 rebounds in like 12 minutes per game at Summer League. And Wong can score, so maybe they keep him around. And this is any capacity. Real contract, 2-way deal again, like with Kendall Brown. You can't do 3 2-ways individually with players now, so Brown would have to be a standard deal next year. I think there's a chance any of them pop. I think they're all interesting players, and I wanted to talk about them a little bit on this show. But it's not common for 2-way players to return to teams. It's pretty rare. Kendall Brown and Brian Bowen, the only 2 that have done it for the Pacers in these, 7 years of 2-way contracts now. That's crazy. So it's possible. I put the odds at about 20%, and I would give most of that to Tshiebwe, just given that he has an established skill. But Wong has the chance to be that level of score.
Just to clarify, was this the interesting one or the not interesting
This
one?
is the not interesting one.
Okay, good. I figured.
I think it's interesting, and I know other people, some will, but
because you criticized me earlier for my percentage and not engaging the listeners well enough. Something tells me labeling this as not interesting also didn't do a good job.
That was harsh. Also, like every player is interesting in their own way. I just for the value of what the more fans are looking for, I understand what I have said.
30% for the same reason you did. Like Oscar Tshiebwe's biggest selling point and why he was able to end up somewhere as an undrafted free agent is because of his rebounding prowess. I think there's something to be said that maybe they would like to see what he is as a developer, and maybe he likes the idea of playing within the Pacers system. I really like Isaiah Wong just because of the fact that if you're willing to show up my Indiana Hoosiers in the NCAA tournament, you're going to stop. Both of ours. They're both ours.
Didn't happen.
Both of ours. It didn't happen, but it did happen. So like I'm willing to recognize game, tip of the cap type thing and say like, yeah, I want Isaiah Wong to make good. He seems like a fun prospect. Let's see what happens there. So ever the optimist, I will one up you in percentage, albeit these are both very pessimistic percentages. 30% to your 20%.
Gosh. What? He was so good in that game.
Oh my God.
Couldn't miss a 3. What did he have? Like 25 points or something?
He broke all of Hoosier Nation's hearts that night. It was very sad.
That was such a frustrating game. I can't believe I'm thinking about it again. If I could go back, Tamar Bates in that game just drove me crazy. Okay, one more player who has a contract that's interesting to me next year. Like the guys with options, right? Bruce Brown, we haven't seen him play for the Pacers. There's not a lot to discuss there. Daniel Tice, we have seen play. It's very clear that he's not worth his deal at this time to them. Maybe by next year he is, but I don't want to talk about that one. We already did Jalen Smith option. So one more guy has a funky contract structure next year. And that's TJ McConnell. His contract next season is $5 million guaranteed out of $9.3 million. So the Pacers would save $4.3 million in some sort of space if they let him go next year. So I guess this is a twofold question. I should rephrase it because as I typed it is TJ McConnell's salary isn't fully guaranteed next season. What are the odds? But I guess I should say by the Pacers, although we determined on my Jalen Smith question that it has to be the Pacers anyway. So this one is really tricky to me. If you had told me this question on July 1st, I'd have said like 90%, 95%. He was just the backup one. He's good at it. It makes a lot of sense for him to be on this team. He's a good vet. And then the Suns stuff popped up, and now the rotation's kind of clogged in the backcourt, and there's questions about if he'll even play. To me, the savings of cutting him, right, $4.3 million, are not that valuable compared to having him on your team. Like you're basically deciding, is he worth having for $4.3 million instead of the full value of his deal? And I think he totally is, even if he doesn't play that much, because he's an awesome vet and a great value and clearly has trade value even on this deal, hence the Suns' reported interest. Although I have some questions about that now that I've thought more about it, and I will vent about that on a different day. So my number is very high, even though I get why he would have it decline. But to me, it's more likely that he's a trade guy than a cut guy. So my number is 80%.
So again, just to clarify, because I apologize. I was
a little better before.
I know. I'm sorry.
This is my fault.
It's the last time I'm coming
this is our last time.
Yeah. So this is if that option will be declined next year.
What are the odds? Oh wait, I said backwards of what I meant. Yes, I literally typed salary isn't fully guaranteed next season, like he's waived or traded, and he's not on the books for the Pacers. So my answer is actually 20% that happens. I think it's more likely that he would be on the team again. Continue.
So this is only if the contract is declined. This is not trade. This is only
waived. See ya.
Yeah, 15%.
Low.
Yeah, TJ McConnell, the only reason he would be on the move from this team, in my mind, is via a trade because he's a valued veteran, because all the cliches you want to throw out there, America. He plays his butt off. He works really hard, and he's a valuable backup point guard. Like all of those things, not even including the contract he's on, are reasons that, as Tony outlined, a team like the Suns might be interested in him. So the only way, and the Pacers value a lot of things in that locker room, but it is players that work hard, that do things the right way, all those other cliches, but that also are valued veterans. They're not going to waive him. No way. Money's not money savings are not strong enough. Also, Tony, to make up for the IU comment, remember that one time when Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue? Okay, it's your time. There you go. See, I made up for it. There we go. We're all good. We're all good.
That was uncalled for.
Yeah, but it made you smile, and it made me smile.
All my friends went to Purdue, or most of them. And so when Edie came back, I was like, ooh, I wonder who Fairleigh Dickinson's big returnees are this year. That was my jab to them, even though IU also has not had the greatest summer ever. I answered my own question backwards when I said 8%. I meant 20%. Like, to me, like Garrett Temple yesterday got $3.2 million, which is his minimum, from the Toronto Raptors. Like, vets who've been in the league for a while, their minimum is at least 2.8 to 3 million this year. It'll be higher next year. So like McConnell on a minimum is almost worth 4.3 million, and he's kind of good. So it's like he's worth that much money, and that's all the savings you'd get. What can you do better with that much cap space than just having him on your team? Not a lot. So to me, it's very unlikely that they'd waive him for the savings, but he is. I get why he'd be a trade candidate given the cloggedness of the rotation, even though having quality play at point guard is probably the most important position. And so it's not like they should be shopping him, but I'd get why they'd accept a good offer. Also, Cameron Payne for TJ McConnell is just not legal. That came out, and at first I thought it was, but I forgot about the second apron. So that something about that report didn't pass.
Oh, literally not legal. Literally,
not like there had to be other players involved for that.
Not like no, that can't happen. I'm not allowing it. Tony East martial law. You're saying like legally,
the CBA says no. Like Ish Wainwright would have had to be in it or something.
Trade Machine shut that down.
Shut it down, man. Shut it down. Yeah, they were all over it. So now I'm kind of like, well, why would the Suns have wanted to include more players to?
KD to Indy? Is that what you're saying?
Is that what you're saying? So something about that doesn't quite pass the smell test to me. At first I was like, oh, I get why this would make sense. But now that I get that that's illegal, I'm like, oh, wait, something about this doesn't register to me. But I get why other teams would have interest in McConnell and Watfos. Next year, I'm going to make you come up with some, because we have to have the same person do these every year. Because next year we can come back and see who is closer on all these. Prediction, I'm going to be right on all 7 of them.
Prediction, just to be fitting to your criticisms of me earlier, how many are there? 7?
Yes.
Also, somebody has to win. You jerk. I was hoping it was right down the middle. I was like, we're going to go
50-50 chance.
Yeah, that would be great. But okay. No, I'm going to win 4-3 in penalties.
We'll add in like halfway through the season, we can look at them again, which actually would be pretty cool to see what the revised situation would be, or add in a few more, add in exactly one just so you can be happy about a tie. Weirdo.
I love it.
We'll see. This was fun. Great idea by the Dunk Down guys who do like 100 of these. They did a whole show recently, even on their public feed for those who don't subscribe. Reviewing theirs from this past season, which was very fun. Jimmy, thank you for the time, as usual, from me with guests over the 30-minute allotment that I like to have. Where can people find you and follow your work covering indie sports and more?
Well, you can always follow me on Twitter at the J Cook. You can hear me Friday nights during the high school football season on RoncalliMediaNetwork.com for the Roncalli Royals, and basketball, of course, when that arrives as well. And then if you're not already, you should be. The Fan Midday Show, proud to be a co-host on there. You can hear that noon to 3 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. And that'll be picked up tomorrow with more of Tony's favorite Colts coverage. Will be more on Jonathan Taylor stuff. So tune in.
It actually has been interesting enough that I've been learning cap rules for the NFL. So
of course you are. Of course you are. You madman.
I'm not as interested as what it means on the field. I want to know what the franchise tag rules are. When Eddie was on at the end, I was like, wait, explain this to me. And all these people are commenting like, it's the average of the top players. I'm like, oh, this is this is cool. I like
It's
it.
a scam is what it is.
It's a
Restricted free agency would be better for the NFL.
That's funny.
Take.
I actually was thinking the franchise tag would be better for the NBA.
Really? That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
I think restricted free agency sucks. So yes, I do. But it's good for teams. So I guess that's something. Yeah. So yes, more if you need more on the Colts. There's also Locked On Colts. Zach and Jake do a great job over there. If you would like more details on that, I believe they're both covering Colts camp in person next week too. So they'll have lots of interesting insights there. Tomorrow, why can't I? Oh yeah, tomorrow, fun show because August is all about history. It is the 3-year anniversary of TJ Warren's 50-point game. I want to talk about that and his play in the bubble in general. Mailbag the last 2 days of this week. And next week, our first player guest. Got one booked up. Really excited to have that one out for you guys next week. Thank you all for listening. Have a great day. We will see you soon.